everybody, and welcome to my Friday ramblings. Today I've got a guest speaker on with us, and that is Jacqui, who did my podcast for this month. So I asked you, the audience, if you had any questions for Jacqui, and so that's what we're going to cover in today's episode. So hi Jacqui, how are we doing?
Hi, good, thank you. I'm coming to you from sunny Spain. I've managed to get away in half term, so
yeah, not to make us jealous at all. All us in the UK,
it's really cold and rainy.
Yeah. So there's Jacqui sat in a lovely vest top with the beautiful sun-kissed shoulders, and here's me in a jumper, hair tied back and looking all pale and pasty. But hey ho, that's life, isn't it?
One day the tables will be turned. It'll be my turn to be in cold
exactly,
UK,
yeah.
and you can be here.
Well, I booked February to go to Tenerife, so it could be that
nice.
we will reverse in February. Who knows?
Yeah.
So Jacqui, I've got a few questions here for you, if you don't mind covering for our lovely audience. And the first one that I got was from a young lady that has been through surgical menopause. And she wanted to know what the differences are between natural, chemical, and surgical menopause, and what are the difference in ways that you can help yourself with each one of those. So it's a bit of a long question, but just be interested.
Do you know how old she is?
She's only in her 20s.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
I mean, the main difference is that it just happens instantly when it's surgical, and so you don't get that, the kind of time lapse between and the fluctuations of the. So it just basically happens overnight. And if she's in her 20s, she absolutely should be on HRT. Until at least age 50, when you would normally have, your hormones until then anyway. But that's the main difference. You don't have that kind of, normal, I guess, fluctuation. It just literally happens overnight. And then the symptoms happen overnight as well, which is, awful. And it's very similar if you've had chemotherapy and things like that as well. Again, it will just put you into menopause overnight, which is awful.
But I guess a lot of ladies that I deal with have chemical menopause as well, obviously because of the symptoms of endometriosis, to try and put you into like an induced menopause to stop the periods. So what is that the same thing? Will that just give you the symptoms?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just it's about those hormones, isn't it? And if your ovaries are taken away, they've gone overnight. If you're suppressing the hormones, they will just go as well. You don't have that, that fluctuation. But I mean, if you're in your 20s or your 30s, you should hopefully there's somebody medically trained who's looking after you as well, because you'll need help until, well, forever basically.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Next question was from a lady who's actually going through natural menopause at the moment. And she was asking, how do you keep yourself motivated when everything's going to shit?
It's a great question, isn't it? I think for me, it's having the people around, other people that are going through it, having a community, sharing. And I think what it makes you realize it's not just you. It's, everybody has a shit day, everybody has a good day. Take the good and try and laugh at the shit, which is, easier said than done. But I think for me, it's just having people to share it with, and having that, like I said in the thing, is having that tribe, having that support network as well. And sometimes it's not just other women going through it. It could be anybody. It could be a doctor. It can be, having massages, having anything, any kind of support network. And I think that's the one thing that I would always say to people to try and have in place, is have a decent GP that you can talk to, have somebody who can come and give you massages, have that kind of support network there, so that you can always go back and get that help. So for me, it's I mean, for me, it's the motivation of exercise and that kind of thing is not so difficult, because it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And so even though getting up off my arse to actually do it is not always easy, I always look at that end point and go, well, I know I'm going to feel better after it.
Yeah.
But also, I think from an exercise perspective, a really good idea is having like an accountability buddy and saying to somebody else, let's motivate each other. Let's, like if I'm feeling rubbish, I'm going to ring you up. You're going to tell me that I'm going to do whatever class today, or you're going to come to the gym with me, or we're going to go for a walk together, or whatever it is. It's always nice to have that person, because if you know it's just you're like, oh, I can't be bothered. If you think you're letting someone else down, it's always a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I always feel, I don't know about you, because you still work as a PT as well. Sometimes having us there is a massive help as well. Absolutely. Because they have that accountability to somebody as well.
Absolutely. And it's not even that they have to come and train with you on that day. It might just be a text.
Exactly. Yeah.
You might just say, what have you done today? Go and get yourself down to go and do some yoga on YouTube or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It is having that person there just to give you a bit of support.
I think this lady's having a lot of struggles because she's really just started with perimenopause, and she has made a lot of changes. She's worked with me for a little while, and she's made a lot of changes, and she's doing what I consider to be things to help herself, but she's still getting that like real dip in the mood and real like lack of motivation and just like they can't be bothered kind of feelings that the menopause can bring about. And I think she is just struggling on that side of things at the moment. So she feels that she's putting the effort in and making the changes, but she just doesn't feel like she's getting much out of it because she's not feeling, like pushing herself forward and doing stuff.
Yeah, it's difficult because even though the changes will help, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not instantaneous. Just like if you go on HRT, it doesn't help overnight.
Yeah.
It can take a few weeks for some people. For some people, it doesn't work. So it is hard because not seeing those benefits straight away is difficult, and that's why I think it's so important for people to have that network and have those supportive people around them. Really.
Exactly. No, that's great. What was the last question? I had another one here. A minute, my phone switched off. Technology. Oh yeah, that was about kind of tracking. So when you're going through the perimenopause and you don't have regular periods, but you have them like, maybe you cycle, instead of it being 28 days when you were younger, it might be like 35, 40 or even less. But it's all over the place. Do you have any kind of tips on how you can track it and what to look out for?
I wasn't so savvy as to have an app. I literally just went in my notes on my phone and started to track day one of my cycle, how long it lasted, and then how many days it was in between the last one. Because I noticed probably the first 2 years I was regular, but my cycle had gone from 28 to 23 days.
Yeah.
So because I was just thinking, why have I got another cycle again? Because it's almost like a week, isn't it? And that makes a big difference. So that's when I started to track, and I thought, well, I'm on a 23-day cycle now. And it was like that for 2 years, from 28 to 23. And I'd been properly 28 days to the dot since I was, 12 years old. So it had dropped to 23. And then I think actually I was here in Spain, and I'd brought my, my stuff, my sanitary stuff, and not used it. And I thought, what's going on there? And then I realized I had 50 days in between one cycle and another. And that's when I really started to go, right, I need to start tracking. But I've only done it on my phone because I just don't know. I didn't even think about an app. I just started to do that. And that's when I started to kind of have a look at what goes on if I miss that cycle. And that's when I noticed that my sleep started to get affected when I'd missed a cycle, because I guess the progesterone release wasn't there. So that's what I did, and it wasn't very techie, but I then realized that literally from, and I think it was May 19, so it was 2 years ago, that was my first kind of missed period. And now it's all over the place. I mean, I still track it. But sometimes it's 24 days, sometimes it's 32, sometimes it's 50. I had one last year, I missed 3. So it was 100 and something days. And I thought, oh, is this going to be? But then I had another one. So
And I think this is, again, you probably talk from experience with the ladies that you work with as well, Jacqui, but I think this is what really can mess with your head a lot as well, because you used to have that 28-day cycle, you knew where you were at. And I, especially when I work with women, especially with endometriosis, I help them to work around that cycle and use it to the best advantage. And again, this lady is one of my clients as well. So she's been used to doing that. And I think she's kind of feeling a little bit lost because it's all over the place now. And she's like kind of trying to plan a life around it so she can have a life, but then she doesn't know when it's coming. So she gets all a bit out of kilter. So I'm like kind of thinking, am I doing the right thing by actually teaching this cyclical thing now? Or do you just kind of let it go a little bit more?
I think it's a new norm, isn't it? It's having to find that new norm. And who knows what that new norm is, because we're all so different with it all. But I think if you've already been tracking and you kind of have obvious symptoms, like some people feel really lethargic, some people get headaches, some people, you might still have that even if you don't get a cycle. So you kind of are aware that it's still in the background, but it's finding that new norm, and it's a pain in the neck, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And as I say, like, I think that can mess with your mind a lot as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know for me, I mean, I'm still quite regular. So I would say that, yes, I'll have like a 28-day and then a 27 and then a 29. So it's not like too far out. So you can still plan your life around it. But it completely threw me this month. So I was like, I think it was due on maybe on Tuesday this week. And I had my reflexology on Friday. I have regular reflexology in the run up to my period for my endometriosis. It helps balance everything out. And I've done that for years. And sadly, last month, I missed my reflexology through one thing and another. And so I've not had it for 2 months. And he came on Friday, did my feet. And then on Saturday, I said, oh, I've got a weird stomach ache. And I thought maybe I'd eaten something the day before that I hadn't quite agreed. It felt like that kind of gripey tummy type of thing. And then after a bit, just like, oh no, this feels like a period pain. It's like, well, that's really weird. So obviously came on Saturday, and that was like 4 days early, and that never happens. It's either late or, it's never really early. And I was like, that's really strange. So whether it was the reflexology, because I'd like not had it for a while, and got it on earlier, I don't know. But that's completely thrown me, because I'm normally like getting myself like, I like nest a little bit, and I start like getting all comfy cozy and start like doing all the stuff that slows me down, which I'd luckily done a little bit of anyway last week, because my body naturally was knackered. So I was like, I should have listened to that more, because I was knackered, that actually this is going to come earlier now. Yeah. Because I know that my energy just goes zap. And I just like, it's not just like, oh, I'm like, I can't be arsed. It's like my energy will not let me do anything. Yeah. Like I'm in the gym to lift some weights. I was like, no, I can't. I even looked at him and went, no, can't do that today. and I should have read it, don't you? I teach this, but I should have read that and gone, actually, this might mean that your period's going to come earlier because of those feelings. And I guess that's kind of what you're saying, is that the symptoms that you have when that period is going to come. Yeah. And it's kind of looking out for that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess if it happens the same next month for you, maybe that you're going to have a new norm and have a shorter cycle. Who knows?
Right.
I know.
Yay!
I know. I would have preferred mine to be longer rather than
short. Me too.
I know.
50 days sounds amazing. Can cope with that.
I know 50 days was amazing, but then I did have 2 years of 23 days. So I guess it's balancing it out, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Gosh. So that's all the questions that I had, Jacqui, but I just wanted you to give you the opportunity of like addressing the audience and giving any more tips that you can kind of think of. I know that on the podcast we covered quite a lot, but just like to give reassurance, I suppose, to women going through the perimenopause and finding this new norm and the way of being, and anything that you can kind of say to them to make life a little bit easier.
I just think that it's I never say to people slow down, because I don't think we should slow down, but I do think we should take more time to just to listen to, like exactly what you just said, to listen to that body, because honestly it tells you everything you need to know. We don't need somebody else to tell us. It's all the information is in here, and it's about being able to tune in. I think that's the right word, not slow down, but tuning in to what's going on. And I don't know, I've kind of come to a conclusion really that it's a bit freeing, really. I don't have that. I kind of have a bit of a don't give a shit attitude a bit more now, and I kind of like that. You know, it's like I've done my bit. You know, that kind of the way that you feel all squishy about people is kind of, well, do you know what? It's my time now, and it is a time to reflect, really, and just to think, well, it is different. It is going to be a bit different, but it doesn't have to be worse. And I think that's what we need to really address, really, is the whole doom and gloom that's surrounding it all. And actually, you know, in some respects, in some areas of the world, it's these people are wise women. They're put on a pedestal. You know, they are, wow, you are amazing. And I think that we have to not just think about the menopause, is also think about years after that, about healthy living, you know. And I mean, who knows? I don't know. I mean, I'm 49. I might live another 30 years. I don't know. But I want to live that brilliantly and healthily, and, you know, be able to do everything I could do in my 30s and 40s, albeit maybe not with the same, you know, gusto and energy, but so what? And for me, that's having young kids. That's what makes me, you know, do that, because I have to. Exactly. I don't want my kids going, my God, my mum's really old, she can't do that. I don't, you know, I don't want that age to stop me, really. So I think, if anything, it's just trying to see a positive side rather than all the doom around it, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been doing a lot of meditation around, because my biggest thing with the perimenopause has been my mood has shifted completely. And I used to get this a lot when I was young, because I had a lot of PMT, and then I helped myself by doing like the things that calm me down a lot and I stress less about now. So I've been doing a lot of meditation around the perimenopause, and a lot of like the meditations are about like the wise woman. And, you know, in shamanic world, it's like a real positive, because she's seen as like an elder now, and you Absolutely. Are like the one that's passing on the great energy and the great wisdom about the world. And I think that's a really nice way of looking at it. I mean, not everybody's kind of in the same headspace as me and spiritually wise, but I think there's a lot that we can take from like other cultures about it.
Absolutely.
And in the Western world, it's kind of, oh yeah, don't speak to your mum like that, or don't speak to Auntie so-and-so, she's going through the menopause, and, you know, you've got to tread carefully. But actually, you know, go and ask her stuff, because, you know,
we all need to know.
Yeah, definitely.
We all need to know, and we all need to know to teach, you know, the younger generation as well. I mean, I wish that someone had told me in my 20s how important it is to have really strong bones and to get into the weight rate. You know, I mean, I did obviously do stuff as a kid, but I was a massive netball player and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, nobody kind of tells you how important it is to get your bone strength as you know, as strong as you can in that in that time frame. And I wish someone had. Why didn't anyone tell me that? And it is passing that down, I think, so that you're the best prepared, and, you know, you've got the knowledge, because I think that's the worst thing, is just the not knowing, isn't it? And also I think it's also not being, you know, nobody knows your own body like you. And so even when you go to the GP and they might say, oh, I think you might be depressed rather than this, and I think this rather than that, you know, you have to think, what am I, you know, what have I, you know, what do I think? And you always have that gut feeling. I think there's always like just trust yourself, and you know, try and get that trust around as well, rather than like, I'm not saying that GPs don't know what they're talking about, because of course they do, but sometimes you might just have to, you know, be a little bit more pushy than you were when you were younger. I mean, I've had issues with my knee and I've had plantar fasciitis for 5 months. It's doing my head in. And I love the NHS. They're brilliant, but they're really good if you're really seriously sick. If you've got an issue with your foot or your knee or whatever, you're like, you know, 9 months down the line. And I've just like taken the bull by the horns and gone, do you know what? I'm in pain. I've been in pain for 5 months. So I went and paid privately to have an MRI scan, because I can't wait anymore. But I am on it with that doctor going, right, I've had my scan. Can you now refer me to the hip specialist? Can you do this? Can you do that? Because I have to. Nobody's going to do it for me. And it's the same with, you know, your health and with menopause. Nobody can do it for you. No, you have to do the exercise. You have to do the work to try and help yourself to get to sleep and to lower stress levels and stuff. No one can do it for you. And yeah, unfortunately, it does take time, and you don't necessarily reap benefits all the time, unless you find that thing that does help, that one thing, depending on what it is, and you do that kind of work, and you go, oh my, you have that aha moment, and you make that one change. Sometimes that one change can be massive for people. Absolutely. But it is about finding, isn't it? It's kind of like knocking on that little door, and is it that? Is it this? Is it this? And yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the arse, but also I think it's just going to be better for the rest of your life. It isn't just about that time, as we know, making those changes and being prepared is absolutely paramount, I think. And I think we just ought to, look at ourselves now as just different, not worse.
And I think, like, we've spoken before, and I don't know if you covered in the podcast or something else I've listened to you recently, but you just always say, embrace the change.
Absolutely.
And just like forget like what we used to be like and accept what we're like now.
Yeah, we can't go back, can we?
No.
And unfortunately, that's not just about menopause, about getting older. You're like, well, I'd love to be well, we can't. But what's the alternative anyway? Do you live through it, or we're dead? There's no alternative, is there?
No.
And then I don't know. I just think there's, I'm nearly 50, and I look around at some of my friends and partners have died of breast cancer, or they've died of this, and I'm thinking, blimey, I shouldn't be moaning, really. I should just be thankful if I get to age 80. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
What's the alternative?
Yeah, I know. I've had a different outlook on life. My mum died when I was 14, and she was 37. So people always go to me like moaning about getting older. I'm like, it's a blessing, not everybody gets to get older. So for me, I like,
absolutely.
You look in the mirror sometimes and you're like, oh God, I've got another wrinkle there. And these are like, push the head on back a bit and make it a bit like more stretch.
Yeah, I need to get me one of them. Get rid of my liney forehead.
I'll get a fringe cut next.
That's exactly why I did it. Cheaper than Botox.
I'm a fringe.
To cover up my liney forehead. But
these are things that happen to us as we get older, don't they? So just go either embrace it.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's a sign of getting older, and it's a privilege, isn't it? It's a privilege. Every year's a privilege. That's what my pastor once said, and he's living with cancer. He's like, every year's a privilege. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to adopt that attitude.
Definitely is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just want laughter lines, not the downturned lines. That's what I want.
I got better sellotape on my face.
Yeah, keep smiling so that they go this way and not that way. Because when you're like that and you're old, you look miserable all the time, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And on that note, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to let you get on with your holiday now and have an amazing time. But thank you so much again for doing the podcast, and also for answering these questions for the audience. And I'm sure I'll have you on again soon. Yeah, great. That'd be brilliant. Thanks, Michelle. Well, you take care. You too. Bye. See you later. Bye. Bye.